Hello, this is Valerie Ayalo, and you're listening to IdeaDiary. Thanks for coming back, y'all, and hanging out. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through this as fast as possible because I feel like this is a lot and nobody probably cares. So I do not want to do album reviews. Just not interested in that because I want to talk about music, but not in a review sort of way. But I did want to review a review, which sounds weird. And I'm not going to tell you like who did this review on YouTube because I don't want this to be like a shaming thing or anything like that. I think it's fine. Like this guy's opinions, totally fine, totally his. But it's just really funny to me because I don't think they're right in a way, which is, it's hard. Right or wrong is not the right answer because it's art. So whatever. But it's really funny for some reason to me. Maybe you'll think so too. But also I had been anticipating the Dixie Chicks album. So this is the album that I bought at Barnes & Noble for $37. I don't know why I feel like that's expensive, but it's fine. It's $34.99 is the price of the album in store. I wanted to buy it in store because I just wanted that sound scan to come from a regular record store, and that was the only one open in Austin, in my neighborhood anyway. I bought the album. I went shopping. I really love this album. It's amazing. I wasn't like waiting for a new Dixie Chicks album to come out, but you know, when I heard that something was coming, I was pretty excited. Then when I heard Jack Antonoff was producing it, I thought, oh great, this is just gonna be some sort of like Taylor Swift wannabe, just trying to write pop hits for the sake of writing pop hits. I don't know. I didn't have like the highest hope when I heard that he was producing the album. You know, I had an open mind with it. I just thought, well, they have a lot of money. They can pay for whoever they want. But I was happily surprised that it wasn't that Natalie and Jack were kind of thrown together because of a paycheck. They actually met at an event in New York City, and I guess Natalie has an apartment there, and obviously Jack has an apartment there. It was some sort of type of event. You're in a hotel, and you're in the party room, like a wedding, and you're seated with people you don't really know. So they ended up talking, and I guess after they met, they exchanged phone numbers and just kind of said, hey, let's hang out and play music. So they did that, and I feel like this is kind of what came out of that friendship, which is a great record. It's obviously Dixie Chicks, or The Chicks, sorry. They changed their name, which I have zero problem with. I kind of think it's cool that they just, for whatever they believed in, good or bad, whether you agree or disagree, I feel like they didn't want Dixie in their name, so they wanted to just be the Chicks, and they didn't care about how much money that would cost them. They wanted it, and they changed their band name, which is probably insanity, but I like the fact that they did it because, you know, it was just, they didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and they didn't want people to have a bad feeling thinking about their music. So I think everyone knows they were the Dixie Chicks, and it's fine. Well, we're just going to go with the new band name, The Chicks, which is kind of why I wanted this album, because they obviously printed these before the band changed their name. You know, I'm sure there'll be a reprint with the correct name, but I wanted to get the original album art with the old band name just to have it. I don't know. There really isn't any reason, except I just felt like it might be a rare thing. I don't know if they're going to sell out of the vinyls and reprint them, but I imagine that they might, because I do feel like, you know, I don't know much about country awards or Grammy awards. I've never really paid attention to them, but if they don't win a Grammy or at least get nominated or whatever country awards are out there, it would really be a shame, because it's definitely a good enough album beginning to end. And if they don't win, I can't help but think it must be political for they're still getting kind of blacklisted for, having an opinion, which to me at the time, I did not care that they said that. I know for some people it was really bad, but all they did was say their opinion. And it being an American, it just seemed like that's what you do. And it didn't matter that they were in England or whatever country they were in. It was just Americans say whatever they want, whenever they want. And it's usually not a big deal. So at the time, I didn't care by thought, but I also didn't listen to country radio. I'm a country fan, but I'm from Texas. So we have something called Texas country, which is totally different than from normal Nashville pop country. Yeah, I mean, you probably wouldn't think it's totally different if you just listen to it and you don't have any idea why Texas country is different, but it's different from regular country. And obviously I listen to a lot of, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s country. And I like some 90s country, mostly for nostalgia, but there is some good 90s country too that I like. But I've kind of missed the boat as far as whatever happened with country music from probably 2000 to 2020. I have zero idea what the top country artists are like in that 20-year span. But I do like the Dixie Chicks. I basically just like 2 Dixie Chicks albums. So I like the album Home because I feel like it's definitely inspired by a lot of Texas country. And I like Wide Open Spaces. So I like the album Wide Open Spaces, which was released in 1998. And I wasn't into the album Fly. And I love the album Home. So other than that, I haven't been much into the Dixie Chicks until now. This album is amazing and I love it. Okay, so what I felt was funny, and I'm going to try to go through this fast. So if it doesn't make much sense, sorry about that, but here we go. So this guy on YouTube, he reviews records, that's fine. So on July 17th, he did this review on the album. So he said it felt very outdated, the new Gaslighter album. And he says he's not a country fan, but he did like Wide Open Spaces. And he went to the Fly tour concert and he liked that. And yeah, he worked at a radio station, so he kind of he was there, the front row seat for the downfall of Dixie Chicks being taken off of the radio. He kind of talks about in 2020, people, and not radio station, people have the power to what they're going to listen to because of streaming and just deciding when and where you want to hear the album and what songs. And he said the Dixie Chicks are the best-selling female band of any genre of all time. And so he talks about Gaslighter. He said that he felt like a dated sound, like it sounded like old Dixie Chicks, and which I feel like is a fine thing, I guess. And he says that this album is the most personal album to date, and I agree. But he says it's personal to a fault. And even though divorce is relatable, their lyrics are too elite, which so he thinks that he thinks that the listeners aren't going to relate to the Dixie Chicks rich people problems, which I just don't. He mentions that she talks about her boat a lot, which she does. She mentions it a couple times. But I don't really feel like owning a boat's that elite. I feel like, it might be like a 40-year-old problem or 40-year-old thing to own a boat, but it's not necessarily crazy. How do I want to say this? It's not elite to have a boat. You can have a boat and have a really bad boat. He mentions the other song that mentions the boat, which is a song called Tights on My Boat. And he kind of talks about owning a boat's a symbol of wealth, which, I mean, it's not a symbol of wealth, but it's also not so over the top. But over the top is also maybe fun when you're daydreaming about, this rock star who's made this album, and and if you're putting yourself, in these situations, you're thinking about the songs and you're putting yourself in the situations. It's not hard to think, okay, the boat's just kind of a symbol of where her husband and the mistress was hooking up. So I don't get the elite reference necessarily. So then he talks about the track called Sleep at Night and being backstage at the Hollywood Bowl. Again, he's feeling like his lyrics are more like lifestyle of the rich and famous, he kind of says. So he talks about the chicks cultivating the theme of breaking up and the divorce thing in nearly every track on the album. And that is very true. And that's why the album is one of the reasons why the album is amazing. Because I think the fantasy kind of is, if you had a husband that cheated on you, and sort of like revenge, but also empowerment. If your husband cheated on you and you wrote an entire album about how he cheated on you so that the whole world would know about it, I think that's the fantasy. And that's what kind of makes the album fun. And that's what makes the album relatable just in general. So even if you don't have a bad marriage, you can kind of listen to the album and have fun kind of fantasizing, okay, what are these songs about? And kind of what happened. It's kind of like a Lifetime movie original. And I understand this is very girly, but it's almost like this is a movie, but it's like just music. So you fill in the blanks with kind of when she talks about just kind of realizing she's in the bad marriage and, how her husband lied to her with Sleep at Night. The song Texas Man, I feel like I might not have put it so number 3 in the album track listing, but Texas Man is kind of like she kind of had confidence to move on to, I don't know, fool around with some other guy, or at least wanting to. And it just goes into Everybody Loves You, when she's kind of dealing with now that she's divorcing and she wants everyone to know what a jerk he is, but there's still these people, after 20 years of marriage, they didn't see the bad side of what was happening. She didn't even see the bad side of what was happening until it happened, or until she realized it was happening. It's so creative, and it's just so deep. It's so personal, and beginning to end, is fantastic. I probably, we'll get into it a little bit more, because he goes pretty much into every track, or almost every track. The theme of divorce on every track of the album, he feels like it's mostly bitterness and hatred and resentment and self-pity. And he says for a song or two, it's okay. He can go along with the catharsis of it all, but over the course of the album, he feels like it's an oppressive thing. For some reason in his review, he talks about the Me Too adjacent in the narrative of the songs, which I don't have any idea what he's talking about, of kind of pulling in the Me Too movement into this. I have zero idea why he's even bringing that up. But anyway, so he's saying the album's so rooted in anger, it never seeks any solutions or personal growth, which, who cares? That, I don't feel like when you're making art, I don't know, I'm like, why? I don't know. It's like he's expecting to feel better after listening to a song about your own life, when really, when you're listening to a Cure album and you just want to sit in your sorrow, like that's the fun part, is just being sad sometimes. So he talks about Sleep at Night, the song. And so in that song, she says, my husband's girlfriend's husband just called me. How messed up is that? And then she kind of says she knows it's not a unique situation that she's in. And he thinks that element of the song is interesting territory to explore. But then he says instead the song spends the bulk of the album talking about how horrible of a guy the ex-husband was. And I mean, yeah, it is pretty bad. I mean, I don't know who her husband is. I didn't know who her husband was before, and I don't know who he is now. I did a Google search on him just to see what he looked like, and I guess he's been in some like WB type of television shows where he's like the hot dad or something. I think the guy's review might be, I think he's missing the girly element, and I'm saying girly, I'm not saying that it's for girls or girls only, but just that fantasy of being super mad at somebody and getting back at them with art and with music and just with super creativity. Especially because this guy he wants to be a creative person. He wants to actually, or at least you get the impression from the album, he wants to be special, but he's just not. And she sticks it to him. So he thinks that she spends the bulk of the songs talking about what a terrible father and husband the guy is. So in one of the lyrics, she says, just because you've been a bad guy, I've seen it with my own eyes. There's a good guy in there. So in that song, she's kind of begging him to sign the divorce papers, or that's kind of the idea that you get in this particular song. And the guy reviewing it, I don't know, it was just kind of funny that this was his take on it. So he was kind of saying the guy might be a total asshole, but I don't blame him for holding out on signing after the 11-song beatdown. As well deserved as it may be, he was just kind of saying like this album is pretty rough as far as when it comes to the cheating husband, because I'm imagining, like, I feel like she might have ruined his life by releasing this album. At least there's definitely a court case that, if he wanted to sue and say like, I can never work again, no one wants to work with me because of this album, I think the dude has a case probably. But at the same time, when you're an artist, you're allowed to sing about your life. You're allowed to write about your life. So I think she can say, this is just art. This is like, none of it was real. I'm being over the top with my artwork. And I think there's a case for that too, even though that's probably not true. I'm thinking like this all happened for real. And I don't know. So there's a song called Everybody Loves You. And this reviewer guy says it's a relatable topic for splits and breakups. He thinks that the song does the best job of navigating complaints of divorce. And he says the irony of the song Everybody Loves You is that the Dixie Chicks didn't write it. So I think that could be a case for, these are, they're general problems. Like Natalie Maines isn't going through anything new. She's just presenting how she processes what happened to her. And it just happens to be pretty amazing. Anyway, this reviewer just says like, the song Everybody Loves You, which is a song about, breaking up with somebody and getting divorced, and pretty much you spend 20 years bringing them around every single person and hoping people love your husband as much as you do, and then it all going bad, and now all these people think he's this great guy when he really isn't, and she's telling them now, but it's a hard maybe emotion to go through. Anyway, he felt like that song was a productive song, so I guess that's good. He talks about the song Hope It's Something Good, and he kind of takes a dig when he's reviewing the song, and he says that's what he was hoping for when it got to this song, but it wasn't. He didn't like it. So again, he thinks that it's passive-aggressive, self-pitying lyrics. I don't know. I just don't see it. I definitely I don't see the passive aggressiveness. I see the self-pitying part, but it's because she's sad and she's broken and she's writing a song about it and she's hoping people relate to it, I guess. I don't know. He's just annoyed that she's talking about this husband so much in every single song, which is what makes the album amazing, because it's just like, it's pretty rough. It is pretty rough. The reviewer just says, like, this husband is done and gone, and the chicks can say good riddance to him. And then he kind of goes into I think there's two sides to every story, especially in divorce. But in the court of public opinion, it's who gets to write the songs is, I guess, whose opinion we're all going to hear. And then he talks about the song Set Me Free. That's the one where he thinks this is a relatable concept for divorce, about like hoping somebody signs the divorce papers. It's kind of funny, like his take on everything. Because, like I said, he's thinking like maybe this guy shouldn't have signed those divorce papers, possibly, with this 11-song smackdown coming at him. So he talks about a song called My Best Friend's Weddings, which is a really great song. So that song is about how she met her husband at her best friend's wedding, at her best friend's first wedding. And then when her best friend got divorced and remarried again, she kind of had this new perspective of watching her friend have happiness again after, having a second marriage and having a life. This reviewer said that it was one of the genuine positive moments on the album. So, okay. He talks about the song Texas Man, which is the one where she's kind of ready to hook up again. And he felt like that was one of the best songs on the album. It was a song for strength, feeling strong and pulling yourself out of it. And that's probably the one song. So when I'm listening to this in my car, I'm listening to the YouTube full album. It's like a visual album. So it's some of the music videos and then just some sort of thing you might see like on a karaoke track. So it's not really a music video, but it's like a visual album artwork. So go watch the visual album. Basically, if you play the full album, it'll play each video in a row. Texas Man, it's definitely one that it's very catchy, and then I might kind of sing it over and over, maybe in my car or in the shower, like when you get songs stuck in your head. So it's definitely one of those melodies that I like, but it's one of the songs that I skip when I'm listening to the first album, just for some reason. It's kind of a little bit hokey for me, because like the album, like I said, I like the song fine enough, but it's like track 3 in the album, and I would definitely like put it closer to the end of the album. Mostly because I just want to like soak in all the bad stuff, and I love it. Okay, so he talks about the 2 songs For Her and Juliana Calm Down, and he thinks those 2 songs are celebrations of strength, which I agree. And he thinks For Her is channeling Alanis Morissette's style and vocal list making songs, which I don't know, I'd have to... I don't see that necessarily. And he just feels like, I don't know, something about encouraging and empowering women is the right thing to do in 2020. And I just feel like, I don't know, I don't feel like it's a band's job to, I don't know, I feel like it's empowering enough to say like, I'm a female, I'm a songwriter, and I'm writing these super awesome songs at a super professional level, and millions of people love it. I feel like that's kind of empowering enough. And then I don't know, it's just something, I feel like his review is, it's like he's taking songwriting to this like other level of like insanity of like, you can't, a song can change the world, but that's not why you write it. You write it because it's like supposed to be like a genuine thing that's coming out of you. And there's different reasons to write songs. I don't know. So then he goes into the song March March, which he says is the only political theme song for one of the most outspoken women musical act group, and that they lump in gun control and climate change. But he thinks that it's a toothless song, and that's a crime. And he doesn't like the lyrics of March March where it talks about being the army of one. He doesn't like that it's like the army of one thing. Is like, I'm this one person and I'm going to march. And, you know, it's the only song on the album that doesn't fit in the theme of it all. And I feel like that song shouldn't, not that it should or shouldn't be on the album, but it's the only song that doesn't fit. And it does feel a little bit like maybe they were trying to write a hit, you know, not that it's not genuine or anything, but I do kind of wish that song maybe wasn't on the album as well. I don't know, but he's saying that he wants it more dramatic, more political. It's not political enough for him, which I just feel like, I don't know. I think they're just kind of trying to write their own version of a political song, kind of in an old-fashioned way, maybe. And it's completely fine. I think it's political enough. They combined it with a political video. You know, it is what it is. That's kind of how I feel about it. But that's kind of, reviews are weird because it's like, why? Why are we doing this? But I just want to talk about all the songs. And I feel like he's talking about him. I'm responding in some way. Even though not that I don't want him to know that I'm doing it, but I'm not doing this to have some sort of like back and forth and to tell him he's wrong. Because I don't want to tell him he's wrong because I don't think that he's wrong. It's his own opinion, and that's fine. So he goes on to say, I have to say, I feel kind of bad for the chicks. I'm sure they had every intention of this album being the spark that would reignite their music career as well as launch them into the sphere of cultural relevance. Which is like, okay, I guess. Yeah, everyone wants their album to be huge, and they've tasted mega success. So I think anyone would be sad to go from millions of people loving you to hundreds of thousands, I guess. But also, when you've already had the super success, I don't necessarily know if you're always kind of reaching for it. And you know, and you'd feel, you kind of just want to make an album, which I feel like is what they did. I don't feel like, other than March, there isn't any sort of pandering to, I've got to make a radio hit and this is what I'm going to do. There's none of that. These are just, they're definitely just trying to write good songs, which I feel like, which was so great about the Home album. He says that he wants them to succeed, and they're extremely talented, regardless of their country genre or pop genre. But he's not going to give them a pass because they're superstars, basically. And he's not going to lift up this music in the name of the Me Too movement, which is like, what? I don't understand why that comes up at all, unless he read something that I have no idea what the connection is, but this has zero to do with Me Too movement. He mentions that any sexual misconduct just has to do with infidelity and not abuse, which is 100% true. Like this, I don't think this album's political at all, except for the one political song that seemingly they just wanted to write just to see if they could write a political song that would be cool. I mean, that's the only thing I get out of that song, March, March. Okay. He goes on to talk about that he's a middle-aged male when he's not, he feels like he's more of the target of the lyrics rather than a market as a listener. And he doesn't think it's misogynistic, that he thinks that these songs are just okay. And it's not misogynistic, it's an opinion. And I feel like he's asking for a bit much. And I don't think he gets the point of what the album is in so many ways. I mean, this is definitely, this is a story. This is like beginning to end. This tells a story. Every song kind of fits in this little picture. It's like a little movie. And I feel like this album is saving lives. Like, there are people going through divorce and going through cheating. And I say men and women, and they can have this album now and just stew in their anger and kind of feel like, okay, I can pull out of this. Like, someone felt this bad about being cheated on and being left or kicking someone out because someone cheated. I don't know. I feel like this is totally empowering to somebody that can kind of if you know anyone who's going through divorce or went through divorce and just can't get over it and keeps talking about it, or has dealt with cheating, I feel like this album is for them. And this is probably making them not feel not as bad about themselves, because I think when you get cheated on, you possibly blame yourself in some way, even if it's totally not your fault. But I feel like this album just connects to someone's heart. And I don't have like a creepy, weird husband. I've never been divorced, and I still love it. So I almost think that I shouldn't listen to it a lot, because I feel like, man, it brings such an imagination to your mind, and the songs are so good. It's like this could manifest some divorce or something. It's really good. Okay, so he doesn't think that the songs are good enough necessarily, or memorable melodies. If anything, he just wants to skip this album, and it makes him want to go listen to the old stuff that he does like. And I kind of don't feel that way. I feel like this is it. I think it's fun to go back and listen to the old songs, but this definitely, I would listen to this over anything else that they've done. He still goes on to say, like, the Gaslighter album feels completely wrong for this time period. Chicks had the ability to make music that matters in 2020, and they still had potential to shake things up, but they're just worried about their own mistress divorce problems. And he thinks that it's a pity party, and that America's moved on to more important issues. And this album is mediocre, self-obsessed, and he thinks the songs are utterly tone deaf for these times. Which I'm like, what? Which I'm like kind of confused about. I don't know. I feel like that's asking for a lot to like make a great record with great lyrics and great music and great recording style, and package it all together into this like piece of art that's like a real album. Maybe he might come back to this album and listen to it I can't imagine they don't win a bunch of awards whenever award season comes around for the music that was released in 2020, because it's pretty good. I mean, if they don't win something, I will be shocked. And yeah, this whole album is about divorce, and it's very personal to her. So you have to kind of use your imagination to kind of bring it in towards yourself, which it's not that hard. This album has tons of imagination to it, tons of great things to relate to. Just, it's a great story. It's definitely almost a concept album, which is insane. So it's like a divorced concept album, and it's amazing beginning to end. So listen to the album for yourself on, like I said, I listen to it on YouTube. Just click The Chicks and Gaslighter, and the full album will come up, their visual album, and just check it out. And that's my review of a review. So that's the show. I still don't know how to end the show, so I'm just going to play the music.